We've all been looking at what's happening in Europe. There are massive structural changes happening as a result of emissions regulations that will mean car manufacturers will have to pay Tesla and Volvo and Polestar to pull emissions with them. But even then, they're still going to have to pay billions of dollars in fines in 2025, 2026 and beyond because of the fact that they are not selling enough electric cars. Either they sell more electric cars, which is going to lose them billions as well, or they will have to pay these fines, or they pay Tesla lots of money. And Tesla, well, as you know, Tesla last year, I believe, made around $2.5 billion US on the sales of their carbon credits, essentially pooling their emissions with other car manufacturers. And car manufacturers have been paying Tesla money for years, so they hate doing this. But we haven't really realized that there's same things happening here in Australia. In fact, experts are saying that in Australia, emissions regulations will probably cost car companies around $2.8 billion under these new regulations. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. We just hit just over more than 500 YouTube members. Thank you so much for supporting us. If you can become a YouTube member, that'd be great. I'll put a link in the description. You'll get access to some of our member-only videos. One of the peak bodies in Australia's automotive industry has claimed that car brands could pay a total of $2.8 billion by 2029 in penalties if they can't meet upcoming emissions regulations. Interestingly, this is coming at a time where new technology regulations with safety has meant that numerous legacy automakers have cancelled cars. Toyota, Suzuki, a number of car brands, Nissan, Mitsubishi, they've got cars, right, that they sell in Australia. This year, they've gone, you got new safety regulations. Screw it. We won't sell them anymore. I'm not joking. This is crazy. Rather than say, okay, you need automatic emergency braking. That's fine. That's like $100 to fit that to a car. It's cheap to fit that to a car to make our cars safer. They've gone, no, we just won't sell them anymore in Australia. Kind of insane. So at the same time, these car companies, particularly Toyota, are complaining about these emissions regulations, saying they're unfair. But Toyota says that they are the greenest car company in the world because they sell so many hybrids. Yeah, a study by Blue Flag, published by the Motor Trades Association of Australia in its pre-budget submission to the federal government here in Australia, claims all brands combined will be hit with penalties totaling $2.8 billion based on the targets of the new Vehicle Efficiency Standard, NVES. Now, I want to make it very clear here. It says all brands combined, but obviously XPeng, Zeekr, Tesla, Polestar, BYD, these brands won't be paying. Their emissions won't be above that they'll have any, even if they're selling some hybrids, they won't be anywhere near a problem here in Australia. I haven't listed every brand. Elite Motor, they'll be fine as well. So this means that the rest of these car companies are in a bit of trouble. They're going to have to pay a lot of money, right, in fines or make their cars better and healthier for the population. This figure is based on car makers not making further adaptation of product offerings, applying only to the current model lineups and announced plans of car makers, not potential future vehicles, which Disney anyway. I mean, a lot of these potential future vehicles that car companies announce, Nissan's like, oh yeah, great, we're going to make 27 new models in 2025, and then it's like 4, and then it's 3, it's 2. This is about what we know so far, about the car models we know are coming out. For example, we know so far that less than 1% of Toyota's car sales in Australia are fully electric, and that's probably not going to change anytime soon. These projections can and should continue to improve as car companies modernize their lineups, the MTAA said in a media release for the federal budget submission. But it really depends on them. Their fate is in their own hands. They complain a lot, though, I can tell you that. If you're here in Australia and you read the motoring news, they complain pretty often in different ways. The MTAA pointed to Toyota announcing its passenger vehicle lineup going hybrid only, albeit only for models with petrol engines available, and the upcoming plug-in hybrid version of Ford's best-selling Ranger Ute as examples of adaptation in the market. Now, one way car manufacturers will attempt to get around this issue is by underreporting the amount of emissions that come out of their cars. There was a recent report shown that car emissions and car fuel use by most manufacturers here in Australia that were actually tested in the real world was much higher. In some cases, it was 30% higher than advertised. In fact, it's about 35% maximum higher than advertised. They'll continue to do that, and this helps them to get away with it. Have you ever seen this? You see these, particularly utes, pickup trucks. You see them driving and you think, that looks like a fairly modern car. Why is there so much black smoke coming out of the exhaust of that vehicle? Surely that would have a diesel particulate filter, right? I don't know the answer to this, but you see this all the time. I've even had people who are not even electric car fans say this to me, like, holy freak, what's up with all these, particularly Japanese pickup trucks? That's really common. If you've seen this, let me know in the comments, because I've seen this so frequently. I used to drive a long way to work every day. It was a long commute, and there was a lot of Japanese pickup trucks on that commute. And there was so much black smoke coming out of these pickup trucks, especially when they're driving up a hill. So what these car manufacturers, I believe, are doing, and they've been caught for it numerous times over the last few years, is falsifying the amount of emissions coming from the exhaust. That's one thing that they might attempt to do in order to avoid paying these fines. We'll see. The NVES came into effect, these emission schemes, on January the 1st, 2025, but car makers won't be penalised for exceeding CO2 targets until the middle of this year, which is July the 1st, 2025. All new passenger and light commercial vehicles sold with a mass of less than 4.5 tonnes are covered under the scheme. So all pickup trucks will be covered under this scheme. They will have to pay, manufacturers like Ford in particular, they could have to pay a lot of money for these emissions regulations fines. If car makers exceed an average carbon emissions target on the vehicles they sell each year, they will be penalised $100 per gram per kilometre of CO2 for every vehicle which exceeds that target. For 2025, the mandate for passenger cars, Type 1, is 141 grams per kilometre of CO2. It's a fair bit less than the European Union regulations, with light commercial vehicles and heavy-duty SUVs set at 210 grams per kilometre. It's actually approximately double that in Europe. Double. And yet, these manufacturers, particularly the Japanese ones, Toyota in particular, but other ones as well, legacy automakers, have been fighting hard to stop these emissions rules, which is crazy. So I've seen this sort of stuff on Facebook, on social media, and I responded one day, the other day, I don't know, a couple of days ago, someone saying, you should just expect that. It's part of living in Australia, and, you know, was really having a go at people for saying that these emissions aren't good. I saw that on his personal Facebook page, he'd been posting stuff about people who have depression and suicide. And there are numerous studies on the effects of air quality, yeah? And there are studies showing that pollutants coming from cars cause or actually definitely affect people's health levels when it comes to their emotional health. Suicide and depression have strong links to emissions. Strong links. I've seen numerous studies now. I've done some research on this. There's numerous studies. So if you've got some friends who love drinking in all these fumes and they're all against this stuff, they think the emissions are great. Just diesel fumes, I love the smell of it. This kind of, you know, they present this as masculine stuff, but it's really because they're just stupid. If you've got friends like that, send them to this stuff. You can easily Google this stuff. It'll pop up for you if you just Google it. Links with depression and suicide to air quality, to air pollution. Just send them this stuff and say, you know, it's very common now for men especially. The suicide is becoming much more common for men. It's increasing, and it's increasing pretty badly. So send them this stuff and say, mate, are you supporting that? Are you supporting the fact that we know these emissions are contributing to depression and potentially to suicide? That's what these reports are saying. That's what these research articles are showing. And that's what I think is one of the things that can kind of make people wake up. It's like slapping someone in the face really, really hard. Like it's a similar sort of thing where they're like, oh, holy shit, I'm actually an idiot. I'm in support of something that's really poisoning people. So unfortunately, a lot of Australians think that these emissions from cars are nothing wrong with them. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. She'll be right, mate. Just ignore it. But they are a major, major health issue. So the Australian government putting in these regulations is absolutely correct. They should have done this a long time ago, but at least it's better late than never. Brands can earn emissions credits by beating their fleet-wide targets, which can then be used in a subsequent year to help meet tighter CO2 targets, or sold on to other brands to help them reach their emissions targets. So as you can see, what's going to happen is brands will basically, Tesla will sell BYD, they'll sell emissions credits essentially to companies like, the bigger polluters who can't meet these targets. Which companies won't meet them? Well, pretty much no one other than these brands I mentioned earlier. The only company considered highly likely to meet them is Hyundai. Australia's only leading car brand is Hyundai that is expected to actually meet these emissions standards. It's definitely not Toyota. So there are the numbers, there are the facts for you. Let me know what you think about all this. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about how this affects you personally? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.